Are you an entrepreneur or ready to become a boss? Welcome to Hawaii Boss, the business podcast made in Hawaii, where you will hear from island movers and shakers on who they are and their impact on our state. And now, step into the office of your host for Hawaii Boss, David Pettijohn.
Aloha, Hawaii Boss podcast crew, listening in out there or watching in out there, or wherever you listening to your podcasts, and or you go to YouTube and you see stuff. You're on TikTok now. I don't even know how to work that. I have to ask my daughter how that works. But anyway, we're here today in the boss's office, Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Junior Tupa'i, who is here with us. We're so thankful for you to come, Junior, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. So it's interesting for us. Again, we're a business-focused podcast, but it's interesting for us to meet and greet the folks who are, really planning on being in leadership. Lieutenant Governor this last couple of years, Josh Green, has been in the news daily because of a pandemic. Certainly, maybe some hard shoes to fill. But where do you see, as a Republican candidate, where do you see maybe you could differentiate from, not necessarily what if you had the same challenges Josh Green faced, what are some of your thoughts? Maybe the next pandemic go around. What are some of the challenges you see out ahead in our area?
Awesome. Thank you again for the opportunity to just come on here and just to be, one of the bosses. It's amazing. Right. But what would I do in that situation?
Yeah,
I know that there are several states that have been, suing the executive branch because of the government overreach in regards to a lot of these mandates and lockdowns. I would look at every didactic, every option, because when you're starting to see these different judges file injunctions against some of these mandates that's saying that they're unconstitutional,
right?
When you see many of them come up, there's a lot of validity to that, which means for us, if there was another potential lockdown, for me, I wouldn't lock down the people. We cannot lock down the economy again. If people want to take a shot, they want to test, they want to wear a mask, it's your choice. Do it, don't do it, but do it with the law. And that's the distinction we have here in Hawaii, that we can do it with the law, and we can respect people that if you're sick, stay home. It's common sense.
Right.
You shouldn't be around people, but if you're okay, healthy people do not make other people sick.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's the challenge is, at the beginning was all these different confusing things happening, and no one knew exactly what was happening. I work in nursing homes, and there's challenges for the kapuna and all this, and certainly, hopefully, you don't have to face anything like that. All these different, this very once in a lifetime sort of pandemic. But where do you see there's things like this, but other things out there in the community? Your background is, your father was a pastor, and you've worked in the National Guard, the Hawaii Youth Challenge, and went to Washington State, football play. Anyway, you've got this, you've lived some of the American dream, and what drives, is this, tell us a little bit about your history that drives you into trying to tackle some of these difficult things.
Right. Great choice of words with the tackle. Right now, currently I'm a senior pastor for a local church in the Big Island, Pana'eva area. Before that, I was working, as you alluded to, the Hawaii National Guard Youth Challenge Academy for 14 cycles. At the same time, I was coaching football for Hilo High, 9 seasons, and then 1 season for Kamehameha. I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree from Washington State University in music with a minor in business administration. And, as I was teaching, even working for YKF for a little bit, a brief stint, I realized that the kids weren't the issue, because I was predominantly, as a teacher and instructor, but that a lot of it was a family life. So that's when I went full-time ministry in 2016. As part of the pastoral staff, and for the past year, I've been senior pastor of the church. But for the past 8-9 months, I've actually been teaching constitutional rights from Hawaii State Constitution and United States Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And about 4 months in, another pastor asked me, he said, "You ever thought about running for office?" I said, "No." You better pray about it, Pastor. And so I prayed about it. Long story short, we announced end of January. And it's been amazing. The campaign so far, it's been moving. But for me, the biggest thing as it pertains to Lieutenant Governor, whether as a coach, as an instructor, as a pastor, or as lieutenant governor, it's simply a title that shows the jurisdiction that I'm serving. That in the end, I get a bigger broom, a bigger shovel to serve more people here in Hawaii.
Okay. So it's more of a servant leadership, sort of a stewardship responsibility that you have. It just happens to be at a larger scale as you, explore different things. So a little bit different. I don't know if you guys razzed you while you're playing football and getting your master's degree in music. I don't know how that, did the football guys like, hey, you're a music major? What's going on? What's going on there?
When we used to do punt returns, they're like, do not return it, June. Just call fair catch. Fair catch. We don't want you getting hurt. Your fingers. It's like, no, it was all right though. A lot of the people actually were into music. A lot of the, actually one of the players, he ended up doing some big things. He had nominated for a Grammy or something like that. Like just different guys were in. It was kind of like opposite sides of the spectrum. You have football, very violent, rah, rah.
Sure.
And then you have music, which helps to kind of like balance it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of those out there that are, scholar athletes, or musician athletes. This is part of, they're practicing a lot. Well, hey, why don't I major in music and master an instrument while I'm out there? You said fingers look like a saxophone positioning.
Saxophone.
Okay.
Yes, saxophone. Yeah.
So did you ever think music would take you? Did you play in high school? Did you think music would, take you this far? I mean,
I never did. Yeah, I actually was planning to go to the NFL, both my brother and myself. And, most guys, when they're growing up, whatever comes easy to you, you choose that as the major because you're focusing on going to the NFL.
Right.
But when I focused on going to the NFL with my brother, he ended up going, he played for the Buffalo Bills for a little bit. But myself, when I got my letter for the tryout for the NFL Combine, I also got a letter that offered me a full ride scholarship to get my master's degree. And I said, you know what, at this point in my life, I just like football. I don't love it. And that's where you get hurt. And so I prayed about it and I just shifted. Yeah.
Well, that's an amazing sacrifice, but you probably know better than anyone. That is a tough decision to say no, but there's reasons, and there's people that get hurt pretty well. And it's a way of life that's, not necessarily family oriented or difficulty to create family situations and things. So, as a conservative pastor, I'm sure and being home, that's an important thing.
Yes, definitely being home.
Right.
Yes.
So the music you thought, and with your experience, growing up as a pastor's kid, that and that you could really fulfill this for many pastors, it's a calling, or that they're led to this sort of their talents exhibit in such a way that this guides you in a certain way. So what part about it, music, and how do you apply music in the work that you do as a pastor?
Yeah, the music, it sets the atmosphere, creates the environment. What I really see with it, though, which translates to any other, platform, is that it's almost like I was like a facilitator. I was a music director. I could teach parts. I could, write parts. I could do it all. But it's more so
like being up front with in control, huh? You just like to be the one with the stick. Say, hey, come on, listen to me. They didn't listen to you enough, Junior, when you were young. You need a big stick now.
I'll be the one that tell them the solo. I'd hook them up. I make you look good. Play the right chords and make your voice sound good, or the right, progression so your instrument will sound good. And so for me, even this actually translates perfect, as a pivot to Lieutenant Governor, to where I can even help accentuate and help to highlight, the strong points of whichever gubernatorial candidate is selected. I mean, it's always about, of course, we want to find, common allegiances and alignments. But in the end, whatever that vision for the governor is, that's part of Lieutenant Governor's, responsibility, is to support and help assist whatever that agenda is that the governor is trying to push with, within reason, of course, that is of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Sure.
But to help facilitate and to help accentuate the strong points of what they're trying to do, and to help bridge the gap between the community and the government. Yeah,
there was some tension there in our last sort of a combination. It's, again, they're not on the same ticket. So that's what's different. I was talking with a friend. It's kind of different. It sounded like president and vice president, but ultimately, you have to sort of get in line once the governor's been selected, and then that also the lieutenant governor has been selected. There's no sort of, then after that, then both teams coordinate.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting that a Democrat president could be in a Republican lieutenant governor.
So with this one, in the primary, you both run separate campaigns, but once after August 13th, we'll actually slate with whoever the Republican candidate is that wins the primary. So Lieutenant Governor and Governor will actually run together.
Then they run together as a ticket
in the general
election. Okay, I got you now.
Yes. So in 37 days, we'll find out whoever the people choose August 13th. And then we have 27 days before the general election. That's why we've already spoken with all the gubernatorial candidates, you know, for the most part, and we can work with any of them. You know, I'm a team player. I love what Don Shula said, the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins. He said, we get so much more done if we don't care who gets the credit. And for me, if someone wants kudos, if someone needs the back scratched, I don't care. As long as the people benefit and the people are the ones that are prioritized, I'm good with it. Yeah. Right.
Well, that brings me to a good point. You know, one of your top points on your action plan is affordable housing for Kama'aina. And again, those people who are in need, we talked last time we interviewed Josh Green, you know, some 27,000 houses, you know, still, not houses necessarily, but the families sort of waiting on the list, et cetera. Lieutenant Governor, we'll work with the governor on probably some of those items. Where do you see the needs there? How do we move that forward?
Yes. You know, that verbiage was very meticulous. It's affordable housing for Kama'aina. You know, a lot of times we can do affordable housing, but then you have other people from other states, other countries that will come in. And, you know, we need to stop that. We need to put the priority on the people here in Hawaii. Right. The other thing is what is actually affordable? What is that metric? Because pre-COVID, the price median for a home here in Hawaii was $800,000. As of now, it's anywhere from 1 million to 1.2 to 1.5 million, depending on which island. Right. Which is ludicrous. The regular 9-to-5 job worker cannot afford that. You know, I have Kapuna in my church. They actually came up to me. They're like, you know, Pastor Junior, I just got off the wait list, you know, to get into the Hawaiian home. But they only have a turnkey for me, but it's $400,000. They're like, I can't afford that. Right. Yeah, they can't afford this stuff. And I know here, it's just people have to work 2 to 3 jobs just to afford, you know,
and 2 or 3 families living in one home.
Yes. Right. That is a great point. Yeah. So it's like, how can we actually, you know, bring the cost of living down? Can we bring the cost of housing down? I know indirectly this helps not only that, but also with the housing, but also with the economy, different things. First of all, we have to look, you know, trying to come with solutions now. We have to address the, you know, the Jones Act. That's something that's never been, you know, we've known this now
for some of our viewers, listeners that don't know Jones Act.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much any ship that comes here into Hawaii has to be flagged, has to be pretty much manufactured, crewed by the U.S. And so this was actually made when Hawaii was a territory. Now that we are a state, they still carried it over. It only affects us, Guam, Puerto Rico, and Alaska. And the big thing is whenever any ship comes from Asia, it passes by Hawaii, goes to, you know, one of the 27 ports on the western, you know, West Coast, which primarily LA, gets reflagged and comes back here, which, you know, takes the cost up tremendously. The other thing for us here, you know, just to give a point for people to understand, a lot of small businesses have been asking me, why is my electricity going 15 to 20%? I'll tell you why. Because when that Jones Act comes into play, 1/3 of our oil was coming from Russia because it was more economical for us to buy oil from Russia, which is 3,700 nautical miles away from here, as opposed to the mainland, which is 2,500 nautical miles away. Right. But it's more economical just to get the oil from Russia. Biden sanctions Russia now because of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Now that oil is no more. Now here comes that oil, which was powering the generators here in Hawaii to produce the electricity. And that's why a lot of these people are seeing all their electricity bills go up 15 to 20% because of that. That's something that needs to be addressed at the federal level, which I know I just heard it today, that they didn't get along, you know, that within their purview, Ed Case, these guys have the plenary power to work to actually, you know, modify this. That needs to be looked at. Because we're no longer a territory. We are, you know, a state. The other thing we can look at is, you know, the tax. We are the highest tax. We used to be the second highest tax state. I think as of now, we are the highest tax state, the hardest state to start a small business. And indirectly, that also relates to the cost of housing. And, you know, 2 taxes just real quick is the general excise tax and the income tax. I mean, general excise tax, they don't not only tax food, they tax everything from the services provided here, cable installation, plumbers, constructions, whatever.
Coming and going. You get it coming and going.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then you have the income tax, which is, 11%, second only to California at 13.3. It's like we need to have dialogue on how we can absolve some of that stuff for Kama'aina and get a simple, low flat rate and transfer some of this capital from wasteful bureaucracies and give it to actually these developers, to these the people of Hawaii, to private small businesses that are actually going to help the economy, that's going to bring the cost down, bring the construction and the development of these houses down to where people can actually get into a ballpark to where they can actually afford this stuff. There's so many things that could be entertained, but I just been learning about policy ever since I started running, but we're so tired of the rhetoric and the empty slogans. Who was it? I think Margaret Thatcher said that governments do not create wealth. They consume it. And, people are tired of it. Like you said earlier, they're working 3 to 4 jobs with 2 to 3 families living in each household. They can't afford to buy these houses here.
Right. And then trying to get an education that fits their needs too. You talk about government and some of the challenges. We look at schools as a pipeline to create workers for these businesses, the kind of economy that we want to create. Sometimes there's I don't know if you have a position, but we've had on here, for these schools that are not a part of the normal DOE, the charter schools.
Right.
And so there's sometimes a push and pull between those. And to talk about education, is there a recommendation? Does there a Republican sort of candidate for Lieutenant Governor have an opinion about education, how that should look like?
Yeah, a big thing for us for the education priority, we want to protect the innocence of the keiki. And as we were moving, there were 2 bills, and then I'll move into that. I'll address that. When the HB 1697 and HB 2125, 1697 was saying that teachers were going to learn how to make it appropriate, male with male, female with female relations, K through 12. And this was, a lot of people did not know about this. And so what happened was we made this whole controversy. The bill that accompanied it was 2125, which says if you as a parent, this was the verbiage, annoys a teacher, they since modified it, but nonetheless, the metric, it's subjective language, which is set by the DOE. Right. It says if you as a parent annoys a teacher, they could fine you $2,000 or put you in prison up to a year, which is, how does that advocate for parental rights to protect their kids? Right. So if a parent didn't agree with that teaching from 1697 and they annoyed a teacher or interfered, then
you don't have any recourse as a parent, it appears.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so I actually heard the original bill that it was nothing of that nature. It's like, why didn't you guys just put it in there in the first place? So 49 out of 51 representatives passed that 2125 through the House. When it came to the Senate Committee on Education, 267 people came out for written and public testimony. Only 4 were in favor of that. 263 were against it. Right. So you can see the huge disconnect, 49 out of 51 representatives, but 263 people out of 267 were against it. So you're seeing this crazy thing happening.
Yeah,
and it's like,
and it sounds like, well, sometimes you'll see that too. That this came up in a lot of different legislatures, that this sort of this standardized sort of new convention for managing these situations with parents just sort of came out into law to all these states. Sort of suddenly, here's a packet that you can put into law and make it work. And sometimes those interest groups are able to get information to those representatives, right. And then the representatives aren't may not be well informed. Alternate options, or sometimes it's already written for them, so they don't have to sort of like, okay, well, maybe we need to be creative in writing this maybe a little way that helps our people to understand what. Or we reflect what the people want to hear or see. Right.
And then the first reading, the second reading, then all of a sudden the third reading, all the verbiage is changed. And so to redirect that to the education, if a lot of parents started pulling their kids out, I know that even now we found out we're the only state that still masks their children in schools. And what was crazy, we found out that they're just simply receiving funds, that it was nothing scientific, nothing about it. And it's like, why are we still the only state? And the bottom line, they're receiving funding. So a lot of parents started pulling their kids out. And for us, what we feel is that wherever the kid goes, the money should follow. It should not stay. So whether it's private school, whether it's homeschool, whatever iteration that the parent feels, that is going to benefit and be conducive for their child's, learning experience, the money should follow them.
Right. And a lot of this is out of the state's control because, there's some of it controlled, but they're federal, requirements and guidelines and things like that. As Lieutenant Governor of the state of Hawaii, you mentioned something about Ed Case and different things. Is there a challenge with the influence from the, from at the national level? As the governorship certainly works with these national players and things like that. What are some of the concerns or the opportunities you think as we work with sort of our friends at the federal level?
We're definitely going to be open to dialogue. We have to be able to work across party lines. We have to be team players. And so we're open to having, fruitful discussions that actually are going to benefit the whole, that are actually going to benefit the people here. And I know that there are other people that are currently running as of now, but who was it? We can work with any of them as far as, being able to see eye to eye at the state and the federal level. Sure. The other thing that I saw with it was, if you look at, for example, being a Republican, look at, say, Governor DeSantis, where the power of the lesser magistrate, where in essence, if the federal tried to come down, there, DeSantis had the power to tell the Biden administration, in essence, kick rocks.
Right.
And when the schools try to circumnavigate that and acquiesce what the federal level was trying to give, he would cut off their funding. Right. And then he would put it on the news and he say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do for our state, but this is what the other people are trying to do. What do you guys want? Right. And he put it out there. Yeah. And he doesn't even have both chambers. He only has one. So it was amazing to see him work like that. And for us, we don't want to, we want to be team players. Mm-hmm. But in the end, if for the betterment of the whole is a certain direction, we need to go in full effect right there. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're pretty confident that the Republicans are rallying their flag around Ron DeSantis in a lot of ways, or he reflects a lot of the values that maybe, or maybe again, maybe it was just a political move that he did, or it seemed successful, but it sounds like he's very popular in that,
Yeah, him, Governor Abbott in Texas, Kristi Noem in South Dakota, mm-hmm. They have certain blueprints. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
We can look at different iterations of what people have been doing and then figure out how that works here in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And now I know we are very unique, Hawaii, like as an island state, it's very unique. So there's other variables that are not in the equation of the other states. So yes, of course, we have to do our due diligence and look at every,
sure.
every mechanism. Sure. Yeah.
And that's what I mean. You can, and there's so much too. And that's what I would wonder. So if you were selected as Lieutenant Governor, what would be what do you think your first, top 5 on the list would be before you go to bed that night of issues, or, maybe top 2 or 3 that like, hey, for sure, Hawaii, this is what we need.
Right. I know that'd be under the purview of the governor and I'd be assisting him, but if I could, top 2, I'd actually look at the land usage, as far as, what's been happening with that. But then also another one would be some of these mandates that they're still putting on some of the things. I'd look to rescind them immediately. Mm-hmm. We need to open up the economy again. We need to let the people know that, this is an aloha state. Mm-hmm. We should be uniting. We should be coming together.
Right.
We should start to dispel these invisible chasms that are dividing, because even me as a pastor, when I said earlier, I was, I'd learned the constitutional rights and was teaching them, because in the Big Island, there in Big Island, a lot of churches were fighting in the churches themselves, because half of them were saying we need to take the shot. The other half were saying we don't.
Oh yeah, it was very dividing for most churches.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this isn't good. Mm-hmm. And so I was in prayer with my ushers department, and, we felt the grace, long story short, to learn about the Constitution and learn about the unalienable rights, notated in the Declaration of Independence and the constitutions. Mm-hmm. And when we learned it and taught it to our church, and in the end, it's like, let people choose, and they understood it. And so the church, it was pono, everything was good. It was amazing. And mm-hmm. yeah, that's the way our state needs to be. Like, we have to come together as a people.
I agree with that. I mean, that's well said. I think that's what we try to do on the Hawaii Boss podcast, is that we have to reach some sort of pono, right? In order to, to be able to move this forward. If everyone is working against each other, competing interests, and not, it is tough though, Hawaii historically, to get everybody to the table and hear each other,
Yes.
which is sometimes difficult. So again, your influence as if you become a lieutenant governor, how would you, again, understanding that you're under the purview of the lieutenant governor, but what's your ability to work with those folks across the aisle? Not necessarily that's kind of an old cliche kind of thing, but those folks who are making decisions on the different committees that are in there that affect how the executive operates and things like that. How do you, hope to develop a coalition of folks for the governor and to help move things along?
Right. To me, you always want to have the people that understand, that are abreast to what's happening, subject matter experts that can fill us in, dial us in to where when we do come into dialogue with these different committees, the chairs, whatnot, that we're able to work, and find a resolution. Mm-hmm. And, not just find a resolution, but do it expeditiously, mm-hmm. do it in a manner that the people can see things happening faster. I hear stuff sometimes when I go on the road and I'm in these forums, I'm in these debates, and I hear all these things that they're talking about, but what I see is that they don't translate to actions. And so whatever that variable is to where it can translate faster, that's something that, someone say like, well, how are you going to do it? I'm like, well, it's been the same for the past 5-6 decades here in Hawaii.
Right.
We've been a one-party system for so long.
Mm-hmm.
You need to try something different because right now it's not even working. But to find those variables to where, with the committees, to find, the different compromises to where we can still get things done uh-huh. for the benefit of the people. Right. And a lot of times it's just communication and it's ego,
Right. And sometimes, politics, sometimes territorial and who,
right.
Hawaii's been sort of this, you imagine sort of like insider politics. Even we've recently had some folks, some of them, senior leadership in the chambers there over the past 5 years, several instances where there are issues with payoffs and different things, which is very sort of strange to hear
yes.
of, and that it's good that it's coming to light, but still
right.
It seems like, okay, is this how Hawaii wants to do business or conduct itself?
Right. And we've heard a lot about this even on the road, where a lot of even international markets, they avoid us specifically because what you touched on, the corruption, the scandal. And that's where we have to be able to rightly divide, is it the true intention to benefit the people, or is it to benefit, and are you beholden to a special interest group that is not benefiting the geographical islands of Hawaii? We have to explore all those different, mechanisms and, decisions and agendas.
And that's what it says here on your action plan about accountability and transparency. How does that look in administration or Republican administration?
Awesome. So we look to actually, we need to look into doing some audits for a lot of these different things, whether the rail, whether, the funding for certain, departments, DOE, whatever it is. I mean, I just heard, we had read that the DOE was given $927 million in COVID funding, but only 27% is accounted for. Like, where's the rest of it?
Where to go?
Yeah. Like, and the rail, same thing. Like all these different things, we need to have transparency. People need full disclosure. These are hard-earned tax dollars that people are not seeing the benefit. I think Winston Churchill said it best. He said that a nation or a state that tries to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle of that bucket. And people are tired of this.
Right.
I talked to a business owner, his property tax was, I think, $5,000, before the rail, but now with the rail tax and all these different added taxes, it's at $9,000 now. And he owns 3 businesses here. And he's like, this is ludicrous. People want full disclosure. They want to know where their money's been going.
Right.
So that's one thing. The other thing is we'd look to have some sort of fireside chat or town hall, open forum, once or twice a month to get the people and just go through the whole gamut, run through it all and let the people know that we're trying to be transparent and show you, that full disclosure, this is what's happening, and not do the whole, languages and, and just make it as the lowest possible common denominator to where people can hear and understand what is happening in the state and the trajectory and the arc of where we're headed. People
Right,
want to know this stuff.
Yeah, especially businesses too want some stability going forward, that there's certain mechanisms in Hawaii and infrastructure that's going to be there. And, there's been talk about, health as a destination for health. There's tourism. What other sort of things do you see as a way of growth place and a space for growth for Hawaii?
Right. I feel like, we can actually, a lot of people say self-sustainability. I think about community sustainability, and that has to do a lot with agriculture. That used to be our biggest export, 100 years ago. And now our biggest export, I believe, is scrap metal. This is crazy. So we need to look to, build up here our ag, farmers, ranching, even some of the type of cattle that we have here, the venison in Maui, the pigs in Big Island. There are ways. I know Wyoming, they do this whole thing, with the wildlife, to where people can, it's actually a program to where people can hunt, and that becomes a source of income for the state.
Right.
And at the same time, we can turn that into a source of food for us. And not only us, it's so much here, we can start exporting this stuff. Mm-hmm. There are different didactics we can look at to actually, whether have slaughterhouses, things of that nature, to where it can produce another, economy here for Hawaii. There are different things here that are natural to Hawaii. It's not just tourism. Now, tourism is great. Right. But at the same time, there are other things that we need to explore. We can't be a one-trick pony. We have to diversify.
Well, I think we realized that with the pandemic, that everything stopped. If the barges stop, what does Hawaii do? And can they do it? If it doesn't come for a little bit, do we got each other's back? Are we able to hui and kind of make this roll or not?
Right. Yeah, and that's what happened. Yeah, as soon as you had the lockdown, and people couldn't come in. Like, the economy suffered, and now we become dependent on, government handouts, different, funding from the federal level. It's like, no, we should be able to be sustainable here in Hawaii. So we have to look at all these different, like I said earlier, we have to be able to diversify. And I know there are other people out there that have other ideas, and especially as it deals with technology, IT, Hawaii should be like I read this somewhere, Hawaii should be like a Venice. Mm-hmm. It should be something where the world can look at, and all these different amalgamations of technology, agriculture, business, economy. Yeah, we have the potential here.
Right, and it sounds like that there's the expectation of a lot of money coming in. There's new developments. There's a brand new veterans home that's going up. I think it was $87 million over in Kapolei. There's now a stadium is approved, which is those kind of things bring lots of different kind of money. But as you say, are they tourist focused, people focused? Could we sustain ourselves? Is there enough land in Hawaii actually to sustain the amount of population that we have here?
Right.
With technology at use, lots of questions I guess we have to evaluate. What are some of the impacts you think of technology? We all kind of went online here with the pandemic, now coming out of it. Where do you see, is it necessary for Hawaii.gov to update, or they have some IT challenges? I guess during the pandemic, lots of these old systems breaking down, for unemployment and things, people couldn't get it. There's just this, all of a sudden, this very old system tried to handle this whole big, so tested our infrastructure. What does that look like for you and the importance of technology going forward?
Yeah, we definitely need to reconfigure, that whole system. Like you said, it was overloaded. I think there's a lot of double work. There's a lot of cross-pollination of the same, double work. We need to cut out all those different layers, because it's making too much, how can you say, hiccups? Right. Too many blips and and even, I don't know if you heard, like, PD is still using, punch out cards, like things like that. Like,
yeah, that tells you a little bit of something, right?
Yeah. Like, we need to upgrade with that. I wanted to also temper my statements with, you know, even with the technology, with everything, the diversification, the economy, all these different, you know, things. But in order to move forward, you have to hold on. You have to remember the past.
Sure.
You know, that's why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen more and speak less. So a lot of times, you know, even with the kupuna, there's a lot of things that is intrinsic to Hawaii that is, you know, it's beholden to the true spirit of aloha here.
Right.
And we need to protect that.
Right.
Because that is going to formulate the paradigms and the ideologies of whatever iteration that we choose to diversify, economy, IT, whatever. Yeah, we have to hold on to that because that's what makes Hawaii unique.
Yeah, that sets the boundaries. I've looked at that too, and I've talked with people about that. Doing business with Aloha or doing whatever it is you're doing with Aloha has certain boundaries of acceptable behavior if you're going to do business, or there's a strong component of being able to give back to the community. There's a strong component of being aware of what the community is feeling, how they feel about your presence in the community.
Yes.
So there's a piece that if you dismiss, well, hey, I bought my license and I know how to do business here, and this is how I got to, you know, if you don't connect with Aloha and respect, you know, the culture again of your seniors and how we speak to one another and the time frame. You don't hurry people up. You know, there's some things that which takes a challenge for some businesses to sort of, as they come in and from somewhere else and try to, like you said, that it's really tough to do business in Hawaii because trying to translate that, you know, with the folks on the anyway on the ground, it's challenging that for some people to get it, but there's that part, but there's still this part of Aloha that really guides all of us. Maybe, hey, take it easy. Maybe we don't need all of that right now. There's some things we have to accelerate, but you know, we understood the needs of the people. I think that now, as a candidate, how do you figure out what the needs of the people are?
That's a great question, David. You know, for me, what I see is that the solutions are actually already in the community. We just need our representatives. We need these people in office that we're coming in. We're not leaders and servants, or excuse me, we're not leaders and authorities, but there's only 2 words I've seen throughout the different bills of rights of several state constitutions, that we're servants and trustees, and that we should be serving the people. We should actually come into the communities and listen to what their needs are. They're the ones that are riding the buses every day and realize, like, after the rail came in, instead of 4 buses an hour, now it's just 2. Now they have to wake up earlier, or they have to come back later, and then they have to walk, you know, in the neighborhoods. Or you know, some of these representatives, they're not driving through the traffic in the West Side and Waianae and going through all the potholes and having to really realign their you know, their tires again, or get new rotation or whatever. Or they're not experiencing these things in real time. You know, maybe they should make a lot of these, you know, people that when we come to office, we need to go through some of these things, that the people walk a mile in their shoes. So when we do start to try and move forward, we understand when they're telling us it needs to be like this. So going back to it, the communities do have the solutions. When I go to all, whether Molokai, talking with the kupuna there, you know, about different things that they'll say, like, we don't want a homeless shelter here, because then all the homeless people from Maui are going to be shifted over here, which a lot of them are actually from the mainland. You know, they'll tell stuff like that. Or if I go to meet with the Kupuna down in Waianae, they're like, you know, this traffic or the water situation, you know, they have their grievances, of course. You know, Article 1, Section 4 of our state constitution, you know, Congress shall pass no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for their grievances. Now, yes, they're going to have complaints, they're going to have grievances, but at the same time, they always come back with solutions. We just need the people in office to take the time, put your ego down, and actually listen to the grievances that people have, and then they're going to come with the solutions. They haven't.
Yeah, you make a good point, because again, we worry about, I think someone during the pandemic, the mayor of Kauai said, oh, there goes the state of Oahu making a decision again for us, you know, you know, kind of like if, you know, Oahu follows, there's a whole other, you know, group of constituencies out there that they have to, especially as lieutenant governor or governor, that you're not so, you know, where certainly a lot of resources are required here, and there's a lot of, you know, activity that happens here, but, you know, you can't just clump that's a special thing about Hawaii too. It's like almost 7, 8 different nations, you know.
Yep. And they're always looking, you know, like the Big Island has their own culture. Molokai has their own, Lanai has their own, Maui has their own, Kauai too. Like, they're always like, you know, it's always so Oahu centric. And, you know, me coming from the Big Island, I totally understand the sentiment of the neighbor island, constituents. That, yeah, we, even when you look at the TAT or whatever, and it's going all to a while, it's like, this is crazy.
Right. Yeah. So there's lots of complex things. I'm glad you're, it's a brave thing to do, particularly to wear, in Hawaii, to wear, we'll call it the Scarlet R, sort of the scarlet letter of an R as a Republican in Hawaii. But it sounds like, with the mood in the country, Republicans, I guess, have as good a chance as any, Democrat, and particularly maybe even in Hawaii to say, hey, maybe we have some alternatives. As you're thinking about that and trying to represent the state of Hawaii, what, some final thoughts and words, the people who may be voting for you, and then we'll take a little bit of time after that and get to know you a little bit more, have a couple of quick questions.
Yeah. There's a huge red wave that's metastasizing in the mainland. A lot of people are tracking this. I talked to different prognosticators. They felt that we wouldn't feel those effects here in Hawaii till maybe the next election cycle. But we feel we're actually going to feel it this fall. I was out campaigning and I was doing some canvassing about 3 weeks ago. And I actually met some Biden voters. I met 3 of them actually on the same day. And we were dialoguing, and all 3 of them had buyer's remorse. Mm-hmm. They brought up the price of gas. They brought up inflation. They brought up just where the economy is, the geopolitical scene. They were not happy at all. Mm-hmm. And at the end of all 3 of these different conversations, they said, you know what? I'm voting Republican this fall. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, before we leave, they each said, can you please put a banner up in front of our house? Mm-hmm. And so I've been seeing this everywhere I go. Mm-hmm. And different demographics, different ecosystems, different coalitions, whatnot, that, in the past have legacy voted. They voted, Democrat because that's what their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents did. A lot of them are changing their tune. The story's changing. The narrative is shifting, and it's shifting in our favor.
They don't feel so culturally obligated to pick Democrat or
yes,
because it's just another shade of another. It's a when there's 16 candidates with a D behind their name, it's kind of like, okay, how do you really differentiate yourself? When you come out with an R, it says like, okay, I really do want to show you that there's another way. Right.
Yeah, and people are open. The message is even palatable for many people to receive now. Mm-hmm. Because of just the barometer and just where society is at right now. Mm-hmm. It's conducive for us for the message that we do have, and people, they welcome it. Mm-hmm. And they'll, we'll come in and I'll lead with it sometimes, in certain areas, and I'm a Republican. Boom, they're like, and they'll whisper, they're like, I'm a Republican too, and it's like you're seeing this more, right? And they're becoming more bold. In the end, for me though, it's not about party, it's about the people. I like what JFK said. JFK said that let us not seek a Republican answer or a Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our responsibility for the future. And that responsibility is simply to run, to offer different viable options for the people of Hawaii to see and to realize that if you want change, look into these candidates. Now, if you want the status quo and the que sera, sera, keep voting the way you've been voting. Right. Yeah.
So it sounds, it sounds like you offer a clear alternative to those things that maybe, again, the mood as you look at the polls and things like that, people aren't feeling like they've been heard exactly. Right. And so, as you best of luck to you. I mean, I know it's a fight out there, and it's, again, like I said, brave. Not everybody decides, hey, I'm going to risk my all of my, recognition in the community, who I am and who people think I am. Now I'm going to go out there and say, hey, and I might fall flat on my face, or I might say something wrong, or I might, but anyway, on behalf of, I say this to all political candidates, way to step up. And, and I think there's more out there probably who want to step up and say, hey, I've got something to say. I think I have something meaningful to say about what's going on here. And that's what it requires. Interested people, citizens of the state making decisions about where they live and around the people that they live with. So we hope to see good things from you. We'll keep tabs on you with the podcast here.
Awesome.
But so we got to know a little bit more about you. As a person who's in politics, you have to talk about what your meaning is for the. We talked a little bit about your background with the music and went to school in your pastor work, but we got to know about a couple other things. A little bit deeper. I won't scare you here too bad. So, what was your position in football?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver. So you had hops. You were able to.
Yeah, I had hops. I had decent speed. I had quickness. Could change direction. Pretty athletic. Yeah.
Yeah, you see some of this stuff on YouTube now. These guys, the defensive back and wide receiver going at it. I don't know what they call that when they do those drills where they're just got a quarterback pitching at them and they're like trying to show each other up and catching one-handed and all this this kind of stuff. It takes a lot of athleticism. Were you always an athlete?
Yeah, growing up, my parents only let us choose one sport because we were always helping out in church. So we gravitated to football immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, baseball, we were scared of the ball.
Uh-huh.
With basketball, we didn't really have basketball courts close by sometimes.
Right.
Whereas football, we could just do it, and it was more physical.
Right.
So and we loved it. You get to hit other people, and it's legal. It's entertainment.
That's right. There seems to be a big string of folks from American Samoa who have that heritage in either rugby or football, and enjoy that very much.
Yes, it does feel good to hit someone.
and it's a family. It's a family sport. It's a good pastime. Everybody gets together and shows how strong. Showing up. Everybody has fun it is, but what part of the state do you live? And in Hilo, where's your if it's Hilo, where's your best place where you like to go? If there's some special grinds, hey, I gotta go there and get food.
Yeah. So with Hilo, I stay. What would you say the best place? If I'm really hungry, I'll go to Cafe 100.
Okay.
And I'll get the Kilauea Loco Moco. That's it.
The big one.
That's the one. Yes. But if I kind of want a change up, I'll do Zippy's chili, and I'll put some mayonnaise in there, just to make that work. That's the best one. The mayonnaise with the chili and some cheese.
I had to come up to that before when I came to Hawaii. Mayonnaise, we're putting the mayonnaise in now. Okay, all right, I'm gonna have to figure that one out. But yeah, I'm all the way to catch up on my rice now, so I'm okay.
Oh man, don't get me started with rice. Oh, man.
Yeah, I bet in college, I'm sure while you're playing football and going to school, you had trying to eat and keep yourself going hard to do. How do you keep yourself healthy now? Pastor, busy. I see some grays there that comes on for all of us. How do you stay in shape?
I eat one meal a day, actually. I do the whole old man thing. I eat one meal a day. I try and limit my carbs. I get my proteins, my greens, and then I try to exercise and stretch every day too.
Right.
Whether it's calisthenics with some push-ups, some body squats, or actually go to the gym and do some kettlebell stuff. Always just trying to stay active for a little bit. I also do a lot of sign waving sometimes, so that kind of
replaces your curls. You gotta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I took the mindset, if I'm running for, government, I might as well run to get in shape, so not really run, but more so run as far as being healthy, active, working out. Yeah.
Right. Well, I talked to Lieutenant Governor Green. He's running, he's 10 miles a day he's doing. And
wow.
So I think there's a lot of, again, not to talk about him so much, he's the Democrat guy. I don't know about him.
That's all good.
But yeah, as you learn as you get older, how important your body is and exercise and things. So in your family, is that an outdoor thing for you folks? You guys continue to enjoy sports with your family and with friends? What's your go-to hobby?
Go-to hobby? I like doing music. I like just playing different things and just to air out and to clear my mind and to really, compartmentalize, what needs to be what is, what is the major and what is the minor, and focus on the major.
Sure. And
let everything else, situate itself properly.
Yeah, people don't realize that the music requires quite an analytical sort of approach to it, and the boundaries of music. But if you get it right, the notes right, magical things can happen when your chorus is or your choir or your orchestra is all working and hitting it. There's nothing.
Right.
There's nothing better.
Nothing better.
You can't explain it until you're in the middle of it, like in a choir or something too. So you can kind of catch it as an audience, but if you're in there, you're conducting and everybody's hitting it and like everything, all the music is where it's supposed to be. There's a there's a great satisfaction there. So I suppose you can transpose that to your work as governor, sort of conducting or lieutenant governor, potentially, being able to create with music, that sort of same mindset.
Yes. And just seeing everything, part of it, in accord or in symphony, in harmony, where every piece is working, someone's the ear, someone else is the eye, someone else is the foot. We're all working together, as one entity. Yeah. Yeah.
And when the brass section is messing around back there, you got to have a sectional. Because they didn't pick up any of what during regular practice, right?
No.
No, anyway. Junior, we're so grateful for you to have come on and get to know you a little bit better, and wish you the best of luck. If you want to find out more about your campaign, votetupa'i.com.
Yes.
They probably find you all over. There's these QR codes and so you can go find out anything about you, your background, your work, stuff we didn't even get a chance to get into with your youth challenge work, etc. Again, appreciate man of the people, it appears, and look forward to hearing all the bright future you've got.
Awesome. Thank you again for the opportunity, and just thank you, for giving other candidates a voice here in Hawaii, that people can realize that we have other options out there. Thank you again.
You bet. Until next time, my brother, take care and aloha. We'll have to see you in Hilo.
Yes, sir. Aloha.
Yeah, aloha.
Make sure to subscribe to Hawaii Boss and follow us on social media at Hawaii Boss Podcast at the links in the description. We'll see you soon in the boss's office.